Good morning. So today we are going to whip up a set of bucking spurs for this saw, and that's going to wrap up this project for the time being. I needed to cut, and that we can't get into any more detail on it. I just needed to go do work for about another month, and then we can tear into it and do all kinds of other fun stuff. Quick update on the handle: it's holding up great. I got 3 days of cutting on it. I haven't been nice to it, and it's showing no signs of letting go, no cracking, anything. So I'm going to run it till it fails. My new handle's here now, so if it ever does happen, I'll swap it all over. But honestly, I can't see that ever letting go. I'm curious. I'm going to run it until it breaks. It might not ever get changed. We'll see. So what we're going to talk about today is a little bit of design things that I was just unaware of when I made the home light spikes. And I'm a huge believer in you don't know what you don't know. But there's nothing wrong with that. You can always learn, right? So things that matter that I was unaware of, one of which is having this lower spike come out a little further and make contact with the ground so that the saw sits properly when you put a bigger bar on it. So without this one on here, the reason why I've left this one on here, even though I don't like it, is because it stops my bar from tipping into the concrete when I put the saw on the floor. And, I like that. I like it to sit when you put it down and not be all tippy. So you want your bottom spike to make contact with the ground in a way that the saw sits level. And another thing I found is you want this second spike to line up with the chain. And I think it just helps to line up cuts. This one being off, I found awkward to use. So I'm going to line the second spike up with the bottom of the chain. And how I'm going to go about doing that is I'm going to lay it out on some graph paper. This is kind of the technique I've come up with for making these things. And what I do is I take my graph paper, I just put it in behind the saw, I run it tight to the body, I set it flat on the ground, I trace a line, that lets me know where my bar is at in relation to the ground, the top and the bottom, because the top matters too, not as much as the bottom I find, but it does matter, you kind of want to know where it's at. And that gives me basically the dimensions I have to work with. And I don't actually have to measure anything to make this. Just by tracing it, I can lay out whatever pattern I want. So the pattern I've come up with is this one. I'm a bit of a pocket knife geek, so I just took my favorite pocket knife and I just traced the blade. That's how I made the spikes for this one, because I don't know, it seems to work. And I know that the body of the saw is right here. So if you see where it mounts is actually off the page, and that's fine because you can take another piece of graph paper and add it onto here and just line up your lines and go from there. How I made the mount for this saw, because it had a spur, is I just traced the original Stihl one, the back half of it where it mounts, and just added that on. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to try something different today. And I'm going to try to cut, let's see if you guys can see. Where's a good angle? Right there. I'm going to see if I'm going to see if I can't cut two pieces out at the same time. So I'm going to cut this in half, and then I'm going to clamp the two pieces together and try to cut the spike side two at a time. And the back half is different on them again because the inboard, outboard mounting hole locations are different. Also, where the holes are in relation to the saw, the chain cover side is further back, so it needs to have more material there. But if I can cut both the spikes out in one shot, at least that saves me some labor. I can always tweak the other end. So I'm going to cut them out with my plasma cutter, again, because I have one. But you can cut this out with anything. You could cut it out with a jigsaw. You could cut it out with a hacksaw, if you're so inclined. You could cut it out with an angle grinder with a cutoff wheel. You could cut it off with a bandsaw. There's a lot of ways you can go about doing this. Just use whatever you have. Some things take more time, and I was fortunate I managed to score that plasma cutter on a really good deal years and years and years ago, and that's what I'm going to use. But don't let not having a plasma cutter hold you back from taking on something like this. There's a lot of ways to cut metal. Some of them are just faster than others. That's really all it comes down to. The plasma cutter, I'd actually argue, you save a lot of time while you're cutting, but you end up having, if you do it like I do freehand, you end up spending a pretty significant amount of time touching things up anyway. So, I think a bandsaw would probably be the best thing to cut this out. I just don't have one. I would love to get one, and I'm actually thinking about building one. But that's a project for another day. So I will cut these all out and shape them. We'll just do a quick time lapse for all that and see if I can figure out how to even do that. And yeah, by the end of the day, we'll have them all mocked up and ready to go. As I was saying, you end up touching them up on the grinder a lot. I always like to start off on the bench grinder, get everything close, and then once I'm more or less happy with the overall shape, I move on to my little die grinder there with my 40 grit wheels on it. How I like to line up the outboard mounts, especially if I don't have anything to work from, I just have the holes on the chain cover, is I'll line it up as best I can. And then on this saw, it worked out really good. I was able to, once I got it in position, just clamp it to the chain cover and use my transfer punches to get the holes exactly in location. They actually ended up lining up really nice on this saw. Once I know my hole locations and I got them drilled, then I was able to trace out where I want to remove all the excess material, give me access to my bar nuts and all that good stuff, because you want to be able to get in there nice and easily. Nothing's worse than having something that's hard to get at because there's something that doesn't need to be there in the way. Laying out some holes, lighten it up a little bit. I like to use a Sharpie and to kind of rough things out while I'm planning, and then if I don't like it, I can always just wipe it off with some brake cleaner. Just a little safety tip on Joe presses. I don't know, if you guys have ever been around any real serious drill presses, but if you ever get around like a gear drive, industrial drill press, it's best you clamp your material down. If you're not going to clamp your material down and you're going to be a hero, hold it with your left hand. Because if you end up such that you can't hold on to it and you can't overpower the machine, at least if you're holding it with your left hand and it's long enough, it'll spin and hit the post on the drill press and not pull you into the machine. There's a lot of other safety issues with drill presses. Hoodie strings are a big one. Long hair is another big one. You don't want to get anything caught up in that spindle. Here I'm using a step drill to chamfer the holes and give them a little bit of a taper. I also use the step drill to drill the two larger holes in the middle. It was just easier. I only had to do two of them. All right. Wow. Life really got away from me there for a hot minute. I couldn't keep up. I had about 10 projects roll through here for other folks that had to get done. This had to get set aside. But we're done. We're going to put this aside for now. We're using it. And I got about 7 days of cutting on it. Handle's holding up great. I finally had a chance to finish my spurs. And during all that, my full wrap handlebar came. I have not had a chance to try it out, but I did just put it on literally just now. So we're done. We're ready to rip. I'm into it. Look at this beauty. I really like this saw. I'm always a huge fan of professional tools. And, if you need them, right? If you need a professional tool, you buy a professional tool. And when you make the jump from consumer grade to professional grade, it never ceases to amaze me how much better stuff can be. And anyway, I love the saw. Spikes are done. Handles on. Bars on, chains on, it's running great, and I'm going to go cutting. I got about a month of cutting left to do. Me and my little brother, we've been cutting lots because we're both running wood stoves. My wood stove has been installed. That got in the mix there too and really held me back for about a week. Unfortunately, still waiting for pencil pushers to sign paperwork so that it's safe, because it's not safe until somebody in a faraway land signs a paper, but nonetheless, I am patiently waiting to run it. And I'm stockpiling wood for next season. I have a little bit for the rest of this season. And yeah, that's going to conclude chainsawery. I have a couple more chainsaw projects, but I got to slide about 10 more projects in before I can get to those. So next on the docket, I just got a bunch of small little wood stove related projects. And I'll be doing those. So those include a set of tools for the fireplace, because we're locked down, so I can't buy them. I know, whatever. Well, maybe you can, but I can't find them anywhere. The two stores that I went, they were out. So they're $50 on Amazon, but at the same time, I can make them in about an hour in my shop here with some rebar and whatever I got lying around. So that's what we're going to do. I got an axe handle that needs to be replaced, so I'll probably cut the old one up and put the new one on and use that as part of it. And then I want to make a rack to store some wood in my house, so when I haul it from in to out, we can do that. Yeah, that'll conclude it. She's a runner, and you know what? She's a looker too, and I like that.